Welcome. What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, July 13th, 7 p.m. Oh my gosh. Before we get started, I just want us all to think about everything, we can be grateful for and just thankful for. Just another day, the sun's out, the weather is beautiful. It's just great time to be alive. So welcome to Courageous Conversations, COVID-19 vaccine, you decide. This is episode 3. Oh my goodness. So Courageous Conversations is a 5-part talk show series for Black and African American communities to receive culturally appropriate and accessible information about COVID-19 and the vaccines. We're featuring trusted members, leaders, and allies of our Black and African American communities to share their perspectives and knowledge to empower us to make the decision we feel is best for ourselves and our loved ones. And so for today's episode, we have Black doctors and experts answering your COVID-19 vaccine questions. I'm super excited for today's show. So before we get started, my name is Lyte. I am the founder and president of Power to the Poetry. And so Power to the Poetry, it's a performing arts organization specializing in spoken word poetry. We promote freedom of expression and provide a platform for underrepresented demographics in our community, including but not limited to people of color, LGBTQ+, women, youth, people with different abilities, etc., raising awareness to social, cultural, political, and personal issues, addressing topics that cultivate crucial and courageous conversations, empowering our audience to engage in dialogue and action for meaningful change. We are warriors of light on a mission to express, expose, and ignite. Power to the Poetry is a movement providing a platform for all voices, fostering a climate of culture, diversity, and inclusion. So often marginalized groups constantly deal with inequalities such as oppression, discrimination, racism, and prejudice. This is unacceptable. We take responsibility for the disparities in our community by creating opportunities for positive and necessary change while inspiring others to do the same. And that's exactly what's going to happen tonight. And we have some amazing guests. So our first guest that we are going to be interviewing is Shelly Willis, and she is a U.S. Army veteran, TEDx speaker, and is the Senior Director of Workforce Systems Alignment for Workforce Central. Shelly leads military initiatives in Pierce County and assists in designing, facilitating, and leading workforce system initiatives locally and regionally. Shelly holds a master's degree in nonprofit management. And we are going to drop some links in the chat to learn more about what Shelly does and drop her LinkedIn and all that good stuff. Then our next guest we have is Paula Sardinas, and she's the president and CEO of FMS Global Strategies. They're a BIPOC lobbying firm for racial justice, diversity, equity, inclusion, equity in cannabis, and more. She also launched and runs Purpose Driven Girl, a women's empowerment nonprofit, and is a member of the National Black Professional Lobbyists Association. Paula's career in public policy spans over 25 years. She's worked on Presidents Bill Clinton's and Barack Obama's campaigns and pushed laws to provide affordable healthcare, data privacy, education funding, cannabis, social equity, foreclosure fairness, and more. In 2019, Governor Jay Inslee appointed her to the Commission for African American Affairs and the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership. And so for more on Paula, we're going to drop some links as well. And then we have Dr. George W. Counts. He's a retired doctor and professor of medicine at the University of Washington School of Medicine here in Seattle. He has longtime mentored others and served as a leader and advocate for diversity and equality in the field of infectious disease. In the mid-1990s, Dr. Count organized doctors, professors, and other minorities in his field to share information and mentor each other. Decades later, this network has become so influential, it is known as the George W. Counts Special Interest Group. It has helped advance hundreds of healthcare professionals of color in their careers while raising awareness of the need for greater diversity, access, inclusion, and equity in the medical field. In addition, he's held countless leadership positions for researching AIDS. In 2020, the IDSA, Infectious Disease Society of America, honored Dr. Counts as the winner of their prestigious award, the IDSA Walter E. Stamm Mentor Award. And not last but not least, we have Dr. Benjamin S. Danielson, and he's a pediatrician and a clinical professor at the Department of Pediatrics at UW School of Medicine. He's well known and loved in Seattle and surrounding communities for being a strong advocate for underserved children and families. Dr. Danielson has also spent his career fighting racial inequities and increasing access to healthcare. He is the former medical director of the Seattle Children's Odessa Brown's Children's Clinic, where he actually resigned over concerns about leadership commitment to change and addressing institutional racism. Dr. Danielson is also the founder of Washington Medical Leader Partnership, which teaches doctors to look for environmental factors that affect the health of children. So we have some amazing speakers for you today. And before we get started, I just want to drop the rules. So we've got some community guidelines. By being here, you're agreeing to be kind to our speakers, musical guests, and each other. Please mute your mics unless asked to unmute. And then put any questions for the Q&A in the chat. And make sure you use your reaction buttons at the bottom of the screen to send lots of love. And the best way to enjoy this experience is in speaker view. So at the top right corner of your screen, there's a little button that says view, and then you can click speaker. And then that's the best way to watch this thing. So we're gonna kick this off with some live music because that's the best way to do anything. And it's so amazing, live music is actually back. And this group is called the Secret Sound Adventures, and they are located here in Seattle. They stream live music every Thursday at 9:30. We're gonna drop all their info in the chat. They just played a live show, which was absolutely amazing at Room the Notes. But, you know, right now we're going to have them play virtually, which is still amazing. But here you go. Secret Sound Adventures, take it away. Are we able to hear them? Oh, here we go. Secret Sound Adventures. Thank you so much. That was so great. Good vibes, good energy. Shout out to Tim and O'War. They will be ending the night for us as well. So stay tuned. But again, this is Courageous Conversations, COVID-19 vaccine, you decide. And we have some amazing guests. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring our first guest up, Shelly Willis. Please introduce yourself, tell the people what you're all about. You absolutely amazing human being, but I'll let her speak for herself.
Honestly, thank you for that. It's always honor and honor to support you and whatever you are doing while you are just grandly rising. You've already kind of gone over my bio, but yes, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I'm located here in Puyallup, Washington. My half of a dual military family, and we are currently residing here in Washington State. And I'm a extreme veteran advocate, always using my voice in multiple ways and platforms to elevate the awareness that our veteran community, specifically our women veterans, need to have and bring notice to certain challenges, unique challenges that our women veterans face specifically, but also in our community professionally, what I do for workforce development. It's all in alignment with also just lifting the voice of the community and partnering. I know you had Tamara on here last week, so I know he spoke a lot about what we're doing from the community engagement aspects. My role is just simply to align systems and create some collaborative ways of work so that we don't continue to work in redundancies, which COVID has allowed us to identify a lot of different, quite a few different things that we have been able to work on to improve our systems, our workforce systems.
So can you talk a little bit more about that and like the impact of COVID, on the work that you're doing and maybe how it's highlighted some things that, need a little bit more light brought to them?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately what the pandemic itself did was, and I keep reiterating this, it really truly removed the distractions. So you had no option but to pay attention to the things that might have festered over time, the challenges and issues, just processes that were not good. Usually when you work in governmental systems, the pivot to change is slow in coming, and it takes a long time. It's very bureaucratic. But when you're working with trying to align systems and you're forced in a situation where you have to make these decisions quickly, the positives of the pandemic was we no longer could sit around and wait on those decisions that would smooth out or create more access to the workforce system itself or systems in general. And also we had to all figure out how can we align so that we could provide the best services to our community that was completely disconnected and cut off. All of our doors had to close, and we had to be, all those ideas that we've always wanted to happen slowly over time were able to happen. I think within about 30 days, we were able to really open virtual doors seamlessly and provide support to our community in unique ways. And another thing that we did, and I don't know if Tamar talks about this one, but our outreach increased, where we, you do pop-ups and things like that, but our outreach increased greatly. We've done more outreach over the last 16 months than we probably actually did in a pre-COVID year. So it is outreach and intention going into those marginalized and underserved communities, going to them. And the key word is we went to them. We don't have them coming to us. So those are just a couple of the things that we were able to identify that we needed to do more of, and we were able to.
Can you talk to us more specifically about the work and the initiatives you are doing for those who aren't, aware about Workforce Central and the things that you guys do?
So we're the Workforce Central is the Workforce Development Board here in Pierce County. There's 12 in the state. In the state of Washington, we have Pierce County, which is Region 6. So all of Pierce County is our responsibility. We have the strategic oversight to provide, and work in alignment with our chief local elected officials and our Workforce Development Council to provide those that alignment and collaborative efforts to bring in more workforce system initiatives. We work through strategy and in making sure that whatever it is that we're doing from a workforce development perspective, it aligns education, economic our economic empowerment piece, and of course, our workforce development piece, and all of the systems that go with that. And we have oversight over the WorkSource system, which is the statewide system. So those branches that you go into labeled WorkSource, that's the system, the state's statewide brand, and you go in there and you can be assisted by multiple partners. What we found was that there were multiple initiatives, even with not just our mandated partners, but with other organizations, community-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, who were all doing workforce development initiatives and work. So there's nothing specific that came out of that other than we realized we needed to be in alignment, because we were sitting up here building something, but we were missing people at the table. What I can say that we did do is we've combined those efforts to make sure that we're tapping into the community-based organizations, those nonprofits, grassroots movements, to bring in that work, workforce development systems work, and then finding a unique way to develop that ecosystem and how we align, where we intersect, in highlighting some facets that really speak to all of us, and what are those outcomes that we want to see.
So with your work at Workforce Central, were any of the, COVID really impacted jobs. And so what did that look like with the work, with job development and work development, especially in BIPOC communities?
I think what it's done is it's really, it really identified how alienating it was, right? So, one of the things that I think is very unique when you talk about creating systems to improve or to assist, one of the things that came out to us is we always walk into a situation with a deficit mindset, traditionally not realizing you were already entering into a conversation to assist somebody. You were entering into an opportunity, but it was from a deficit mindset. And it wasn't necessarily in a way of that would probably set them up for long-term success. So we wanted to switch that deficit mindset. And that also means working with employers and making sure that they really truly are seeking out not just talents and skills, but how are they investing in training, teaching, connecting that education pipeline to build that career pathway that's going to get our underserved populations, our Black and Brown communities, to economic stability. The goal is to economic empower for everyone. So how do we get from this to that in a way that's going to be our underserved population, in a way that's going to be beneficial for everyone. So I think what we've done on both sides of it, especially with businesses, is we have our business solutions professionals working with employers now and really walking them through the journey of what hiring talent and retaining talent looks like. You can hire, but retention is a big thing, especially now where I would just say with our, just an idea of remote work has been a proven concept. So no longer, now that we've done it and employers had to pivot to it, now you can hire anyone from anywhere. So we want to make sure that they continue to seek talent here. Where it applies, we want to make sure that the remote work opportunities continue and that we don't revert back to where we were. And we just say, okay, well, we don't need to do remote work anymore. We want people back in the building, but it also benefits them and helps them reach their bottom line.
So you being, I feel like a pivotal leader in our community, I just kind of wanted to hear your stance about, the vaccine and, your decision and why you felt the need to take it and, kind of advocate for it.
I was in the military for 25 years. We didn't get options on vaccination. It was kind of like stand in line, raise up your left and right sleeve, take your utility jacket off, whatever branch you're in, stand in line and just kind of walk through, almost like inoculation for cattle. You're just getting shots, especially if you're gearing up for a deployment. I see people laughing at me, some of our, they must know what I'm talking about. So standing in line and just going through and getting a shot. So for me, just as if I were preparing for a deployment, going into a foreign country that might have something over there that could harm me, I'm just looking at it as, why wouldn't I? I know historically, our Black community historically have a lot of things that have happened. We have a lot of historical documented real life experiences. But for me, it just wasn't a second thought. How soon can I get it? When can I get it? And where? And we all, even in my family, we all were like, we're going to get it. It wasn't even a secondary thought. I can understand people having apprehension, but I just think this particular situation right here is not a place for apprehension. And I mean, I still go out with my mask on just because I don't trust the community that I'm around. I don't trust the people, because now that you say we're all open and you can't ask questions, of course, I still want to protect myself. Doesn't mean that I doubt the vaccine, but I still think that it's a level of caution that I exercise because I don't know who around me isn't vaccinated. I've gone out a couple of times, did a whole conference, and we were fine, but it's still like there's some anxiety there because now you don't know who to trust, who's operating in integrity. This is all a trust thing. So I didn't have a secondary thought about it. I can understand if you have underlying health issues and you second guess it or whatever. And I'm not. We have medical professionals on this evening, but I think for me, it just wasn't a secondary thought. I wanted to see my mom. I wanted to make sure I could hug my mom when I saw my mom, and I wanted to be able to see my family when that time came. And I just didn't want to have to be hit with any restrictions because of that. And I knew that I would be an honest person, so that if I didn't get vaccinated, I wouldn't be running around here without a mask. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't a secondary thought for me.
Well, thank you so much, Shelly, for sharing your insight and your wisdom. And thank you so much for just the equity work that you're doing. We appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. So just keep being great.
Thank you so much.
Keep being a super hero. So next we have another super hero, Paula Sardinas. Paula is absolutely amazing. I'm so excited to have her on. Paula, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about yourself and all the wonderful things that you do.
Thank you, my queen. First of all, I want to say we create these spaces for our young people, and you are doing such amazing work. So as a Black woman, I'm so proud to see you doing your thing. So my name is Paula Sardinas. I'm in Florida, so I'm in a different time zone from you guys. But my story is just really simple. A small town girl who worked hard and had the fortune of working for 4 presidents. I craft public policy in 7 states with my heart being anti-Black racism, right? And so I look at economic policy through that lens, whether it's healthcare, banking, insurance, affordable housing, digital inequity, healthcare disparities. You know, how can we take the lessons that we've learned in corporate America, apply those to the real voices that we've learned as a young community activist, and then translate that into actionable laws and policies that change the lives of Black and brown Washingtonians and across this country. And so I was very fortunate to have my own advocacy firm and to create the Washington Build Back Black Alliance, where this year we passed 155 bills. We've worked on every issue from foreclosure fairness to cannabis social equity, criminal justice reform, CDF low-income lending to make credit more accessible to communities of color. If it touches our economic empowerment, then that is something that I want to work on. And of course, we do a little something for the DOH with COVID-19.
And so, can you talk to me a little bit about, you know, any kind of disparities you feel like you have seen or witnessed, or any kind of equity work you've been working on due to, you know, COVID-19 and the vaccine?
Oh, it's been incredible. So my story with COVID-19 happened almost 18 months ago. My aunt, who was Puerto Rican, was one of the first people in the state of New York to die from COVID-19. And we really struggled. She was a resident of New York, but she was a missionary. So she was in the Dominican Republic building a church to house poor families when she contracted what they thought was pneumonia. Within 5 or 6 days, she was on a respirator. Within 9 days of being diagnosed, she died. And we first really got involved with COVID-19 when we were trying to get Governor Cuomo to allow us to bring her remains back to New York for burial, and could not get her body back inside the United States because they told us that she had died of something that was very contagious. And I get emotional just saying it. We ended up burying her in Puerto Rico, where my uncle lives, because she had COVID-19 at those early stages, and the Trump administration would not allow us to bring her home. And so for me, I know the level of pain and suffering that my family went through and her children went through, and I did not want anybody else to be able to go through that, to have her grown children in New York, only able to see their mother through FaceTime, taking her last breaths on a respirator. And so we attacked COVID-19 from accessibility and education in communities of color, working with 253 Black and Brown organizations in Washington State, making sure that we could translate the information, not just to communities, but also to make sure people knew that we had a higher healthcare disparity because of things like environmental justice, and we were predisposed to preconditions before COVID-19, and we were dying at a disproportionate rate. When you overlay poverty, lack of access, not having the proper vaccines in clinics, when you overlay language inaccessibility and an institutional distrust because of things like the Tuskegee experiment, because I'm from the South, we were expecting to see our people die at a higher rate. And so we wanted to message, as people who understand the mistrust of government, having worked with government, but having lost a family member. And at the time, my husband's uncle was on a respirator in New Jersey. Being from the Northeast and the Southeast, COVID ravaged our family, that we needed to support and be good stewards of vaccination, because we knew that if people didn't get vaccinated, be like, they were just going to die. There was no way to sugarcoat it, right? We got high blood pressure. I take 2 blood pressure medications myself. I was confined by my physician to my home for 12 months because I was high risk. On the governor's grid, I would have been in that 4th category of being able to go out if I was unvaccinated. And so imagine having 4 children and me looking at my family saying, if I come in contact with somebody with this virus, I have a very small percentage of surviving it. And so we just became evangelists for educating the Black and Brown community, having those honest conversations, being transparent about fear, showing people the picture of my aunt on her respirator and saying, this is the choice you make if you don't get the vaccine. And then saying, what can we do to make it more comfortable and accessible? But also, what do we need government to do? What funds need to be invested? You need to stop, creating structurally racist barriers and then expecting Black folk to do work in community for free. So you need to take some of those state and federal dollars and you need to give them to Black agencies and Black individuals to be able to do this work, to dismantle the barriers that we know that they created and erected, right? And so it's making sure that we not only talk about the vaccine, but we've also got to talk about equity and inequality of providing that, like not having a Black male clinic or Cleveland Clinic when we have healthcare disparities, about people coming from Mercer Island and Bellevue into the Central District when the Pfizer vaccine was first made available, which is shameful and deplorable. And we need to call that out when white folks were going to our communities to get vaccinated, taking medications from our people. And so we just wanted to educate folks so they knew this is our reality.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for doing this work, because it needs to be done. I do know you work a lot with, businesses, especially Black businesses. And can you talk about how the pandemic, affected our businesses and, how potentially this vaccine and us, taking this vaccine can help us revitalize our businesses?
Absolutely. I tell people we suffer from 2 pandemics in the Black community, structural racism and COVID-19, right? How did structural racism impact us before November of 2020? Black businesses were under-resourced, underfunded, underappreciated, and undereducated. But we know, looking at Black Wall Street and looking at our mothers and fathers and grandparents, that the Black business is the hallmark of the community. It's how our grandparents were able to buy their homes. It's why you had a generation from the 50s to right around 1970 where everyone was graduating with a BA and a master's degree. You have these really well-educated professionals like Dr. Ben and others on this call tonight. But when you don't have economic empowerment, when you have been decimated because your business was struggling before COVID and you're on these stay-home orders, we really did not have a Black economic plan in place in Washington State to allow those businesses to recover, because we weren't supporting them before. And so be like 99% of all the businesses in Washington are small businesses. They employ 1.5 million people in a state that has just about 8 million in its population, right? Yet we invest very little in keeping Black businesses going. So what I do through my purpose-driven Grow nonprofit is sit down and have coaching sessions with business owners, small businesses. For us, it's the micro business, the 1 to 5, We do what we call their business health, and we know that the system is arduous and difficult if you have everything right, but it is impossible if you are one document short. You know, it's like, show your papers. Well, they know a lot of times our papers aren't right because they haven't invested in making sure we could get them right. And so what we try to do in our workshops is we start to practice what we preach, right? So if we invite you to come listen to us for an hour, we pay you what we think our time is worth. If I tell you my time's worth $100 an hour, then I pay you that $100 for yours. And we make sure that we give out resources and tools so that when you leave, you are not just having someone come to you and talk to you. It's a collaborative, iterative conversation where we take in information, we give it out, but we stay with you for a period of 6 months after one of our webinars and make sure that we can coach you through how to build your business, everything from looking at grant opportunities, supplying you with back office tools, to helping you look at loans and infrastructure for your business. I then take that data back and I meet with the governor, I meet with the Department of Commerce, I meet with the Biden-Harris administration, and we talk to them when they're doing things like the American Rescue Plan and where they need to put those dollars. We talk to Commerce about when you have $1 billion and you push it out to white patriarchal organizations, why you need to chop that up in tranches and give it directly to Black and brown businesses and communities. So we consider our work to be agents of the community, and we don't measure our value by how many businesses we saved. We measure our value by how many businesses that we built and how those businesses poured back into community, and what does that look like to community, and we're answerable and accountable to community for our KPIs.
Paula, thank you so much. Again, thank you for all the amazing work that you do and for being a superhero. We appreciate you.
I love you, sister, and thank you for being my co-host on my last webinar with almost 40 people, and just wanted to circle back with you. We are meeting one-on-one with all those businesses, and we will give you a report card, and we encourage the community to hold us accountable because we are accountable to you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So our next guest we have is Dr. George Counts. And Dr. Counts, I'm going to go ahead and say he's an OG. He's been in this game, in the medical game. Dr. Counts, I honestly, like, take it away. The floor is yours. I really want to learn. Like, you have been here in the trenches, especially your work with AIDS, fighting for diversity and equity in the medical field. And so just anything you have to say, I want to hear.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here and glad to be able to participate. I think that what COVID has, what it has shown is the importance of questions being asked of vaccines and getting the answers. As you said, I have participated in vaccine trials. I have participated in vaccine trials for HIV. And if I were being asked to participate in a vaccine trial, I would ask two questions. Is it safe and is it effective? And then the answers to both of those have to come from someone in whom I have confidence. So that leads us back to the development of trusted Black voices in this case. Now, that need has been there regarding vaccine or drug trials forever. 25 years ago, there was concern because of all the clinical trials that were being conducted. They had an insufficient number of women and minorities in the trials. Yet when the trials were completed, the drugs and vaccines could be used on anybody, including women who had never been in the trials, never known whether they were effective or safe. So that started the effort to try to get more Blacks and women in clinical trials of all types. Part of the hesitancy, I believe, for Black people was the absence of trusted Black voices. There are also multiple issues involved in terms of access to care, access to therapy, and access to treatment. But the Black voices was an area that I was particularly interested in. So as an infectious disease specialist, my goal was try to get more Black physicians into infectious diseases to become these voices that I'm talking about. So that's why I started 25 years ago, rounding up any physician that I saw at a national meeting who was Black, who was looking for a career in infectious diseases. how could I help them and get them interested in becoming these trusted voices? It's a long path from just physician, medical school, training to become scholars in infectious diseases. But I was at the National Institutes of Health at the time, and I was in a position where I could do what little I could to steer their careers. And you mentioned that interest group that formed. These are young people who were coming along. I had some role in helping their careers, and now they are physicians, scholars among the Infectious Disease Society. They are some of these trusted Black voices. So those are just some thoughts I have on developing trusted voices. It's a delight to see around the country now. You turn on the news and there is a Black or brown trusted voice talking about COVID. I'm very satisfied with that.
So how do you feel the approach, to this vaccine has been when it comes to, equity and diversity and inclusion and, making sure that we test, across the whole entire spectrum?
Right. These vaccines are so extraordinary in so many ways. The most obvious one is the speed with which they were developed. That speed can lend itself to questions of whether or not they are safe and effective. Because they were done in less than a year, 9 or 10 months, where many vaccines take 3 years, 5 years, 15 years. For example, the HIV vaccine, it has now been almost 20 years and we still don't have an HIV vaccine. So are these vaccines developed in 8 or 9 or 10 months safe and effective? How could they have developed them so fast? Well, there are several reasons why this happened. One is that the technology for using these type of vaccines was already there. Scientists already knew about using these messenger RNA vaccines. The other and the most important reason it was done so quickly was that we were in the midst of a pandemic where there are, thousands of cases. If you want to test a drug or vaccine to show that it is effective, you align some people up in the control groups, some people up in the vaccine groups, and you go along and get 5, 10, 20 cases, and they're all in the non-vaccine group. This tells you that the drug is effective. If there are many cases, you can very quickly reach the number of cases that you need. For cases that occur, once a month, once every other month, it might take years to accumulate enough cases. So what I'm saying is that we were able to get these vaccines quickly because there were so many cases in the community so that you could study them in the trials. We were very fortunate in that. So now we have a vaccine and the issues, some questions remain, but the issue is getting everybody to take it.
And that's very true. So, from your experience in your profession, what do you think needs to happen to get everyone to take it?
Well, we have today's divisive times, where there are a lot of competing views and issues in this country. It's an extraordinary time. We're now facing the amount of institutional racism, which has always been there, but now this vaccine and response to this vaccine has just accentuated the discussion. I think that there can be a lot of legitimate reasons for not wanting to take the vaccine. Some of them could be medical, some of them could be religious, and some of them can just be wait and see. Some of them can be, I don't trust the government for a variety of reasons, some of which we are aware of and have talked about. all of these are reasons why there might be some hesitancy in wanting to take the vaccine. What I stress is that the vaccine is the way to prevent people from getting sick and dying from COVID. To my view, everyone who is medically eligible should be taking the vaccine.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree with you. So you are retired, but have you been doing any work, to
Yes,
get, can you talk about some of the work that you've been doing to be out here in the community and
sure.
help us get through this pandemic?
I live in a retirement community here in Seattle. About 500 people are here. And a year and a half ago, when this all started, the institution, like many retirement institutions, had cases of COVID. So they had to form a group to try to treat and protect the others from getting COVID. So here, 9 senior members of the administration formed a task force. They're all administrators, the CEO, CFO, et cetera. But they didn't have particular expertise in hospital epidemiology and hospital infection control. So I joined this COVID task force. So we have met every day, 5 days a week now for 15 months to recognize, make decisions how to prevent our people from getting COVID, encourage the development of vaccines, and we're very pleased to have been very successful so far. So I am back involved with hospital infection control, which I hadn't done for 25 years, but I can still remember enough of it.
Well, thank you for the work that you've done and the work that you're doing. We need you, and so you are very much appreciated. Thank you so much, Dr. Counts.
Thank you, Lyte.
So we have our final guest, Dr. Benjamin Danielson. I'm so excited to have you today. Can you just introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about what you do?
I'm very honored to be here with you all. I'm still sort of resting in the glow, you know what I mean, from the way this started with the beautiful music to the voices of my sisters who are brilliant and are doing their work every day to lift up, support, and build community all around us and make sure that that's a sustaining community, to the familiar wise words of one of my mentors and elders, Dr. Counts. So all I can tell you is I'm so pleased to be here. I'm so impressed with your ability to bring us together and your the opportunity that you've created. I'm a pediatrician. I came out to Seattle to go to medical school and found this amazing community, and it has been a deep, deep honor to be part of the Central District and part of the community for a few decades of my professional life. And I'm so thankful for that.
So Dr. Danielson, one thing I do want to ask, and I feel like just for me personally, but I think this will apply to everyone, is, becoming a doctor is a big deal, but becoming a Black doctor. And I want to ask you kind of what was that inspiration? And then also, what were kind of some of the barriers you had to overcome and the inequalities and disparities you had to deal with to climb up in your field?
That's such a good question, and I think some of my answers are so dumb and corny. I think I was sometimes as motivated by the people who said I couldn't do things as by the people who said I could. I had amazing people who looked out for me from earliest days, and I grew up in Washington, D.C., and had people who took the time to teach me about community, about Black community, about what it meant to be part of a community and what obligations came with that. I didn't always listen to them at the time, but they percolated in my head, and I grew into the lessons that I learned as a young person. And they taught me about some things that I struggle with today, around being twice as good, about whether it's okay or not to bring my angry into my life. I'm getting better and better at that. I'm better at being an angry Black man than expressively than I used to be as a young person. But I also learned important lessons about what we owe each other and about what we need to be doing to make sure that when we are going along in our lives, we are walking beside many other people, people who help us lift us up, people we may never meet who've helped and lifted us up, the voices and the supports and the folks that make a community a beloved one. I took lessons from anywhere I could find it. I took mentorship from many places, and I tried to grow into the kind of person that I thought people expected and wanted me to be.
Well, again, thank you for growing into that person and, being a great inspiration and example to our community. And so when we talk about our community, especially the Black community, when we talk about health and medicine, it's something I feel that we shy away from. We're not the healthiest. And so can you talk about, just how you feel, about how COVID's kind of affected our community and what you think we can do better to protect ourselves and really create lifestyles that are healthy and abundant?
A young person who is a mentor to me, who I feel like is somewhere close to your age, was admonishing me the other day for saying things, for putting things into the world that were narratives that perhaps are the narratives that white folks want us to say about ourselves. And so I want to very kindly resist the temptation to talk about what's wrong with our communities, because there is so much that is beautiful and right and healthy and strong. And you see over and over again in healthcare how somehow the definitions, the data, the numbers are there to just keep describing the deficits and the negatives in our community. I so appreciated Paula's words about lifting up the strengths and the assets. And I heard that in Shelley as well. So what's right about the communities that I've had the honor to spend time with has been the deep, thoughtful approach to decision making that is informed by ages and generations, that comes from a kind of health knowledge that is deeper than the p-values and statistical analysis that I taught in medical school, come from the ways in which we think about celebration and joy and laughter and music, and the ways in which there is an emanating light that lifts up from Black communities, and it is brilliant and beautiful. And even in the midst of the deepest forms of racism and oppression that have been hitting us for centuries, and even in the midst of communities being burned to the ground and people's lives being extinguished, even in the midst of a virus that not only reveals all about us as a society and its racism and oppression, but also has a special predilection for killing us, even in the midst of all of that. We are beautiful, strong, amazing communities who rise and stand tall. And when we come together, the rest of the world needs to notice us.
That is so true. And you remind me of my mom, because she's always like, focus on the positive and the good. And so I absolutely agree. You are practicing medicine. And so one thing I would like to ask is, what are some of the things that you hear from the community of why they're hesitant about the vaccine?
I think that it's so true that our healthcare system, the traditional healthcare system, has done such a terrible job of being trustworthy to so many communities, but especially to Black communities, that it is intelligent and smart and wise to be very wary of the system. And I say that with embarrassment as a person who trained in it and learned all the language and have walked in the white coat world for a while. I think that there's a strong sense of something deeper also sometimes in the questioning. Like, it's sometimes I feel like there's this message that is saying, uh, yes, we deserve the very best possible care. This highly technological, highly rich country can provide. We deserve all of that, but we deserve something much, much more. We deserve a stronger conversation about the way that we have been pushed down and set aside for too long. So sometimes I feel like this, you only want to talk to me about a vaccine. I want to talk about something bigger and larger and stronger. And when you're ready to talk to me about that, then maybe the rest of this conversation, say about vaccines, can be included. And maybe that is the kind of way that we should all be thinking about this. This is bigger. The vaccines are so important. They save lives. I know the people who will be dying in the next months are all going to be the people who are unvaccinated. I know all of that. And I also know the ongoing acts of racism in our systems call on us to be having a deeper conversation as well. And we are smart people with complex minds, and we can have both of those or all of those conversations that we need to be having.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, is there any last comments you'd like to leave the people with? And honestly, everything you said is so thought-provoking. And when you think about it as a bigger picture, and it leaves me inspired, very, very much inspired.
Me too. I'm inspired by you and by this conversation, by the rest of the community that I get to spend time with. I've had so many inspiring conversations, even in the midst of this past year and a half with so much going on. There has been a certain kind of galvanizing and coming together and a willingness to talk. And man, I know Paula now, and I know Shelley now, and I get to see my old friend Dr. Counts, and I get to learn from you. This is meaningful and important, and these are the things we must hold on to forever and ever and ever, because that's how we lift, that's how we grow, that's how we gain. The other message I would just say is that however you choose, whatever choices someone makes, they need to know that that people care about them, and that they still deserve the best possible care no matter what. That wherever you go in the world, you as a Black person, you are a brilliant, incredible being who deserves every kind of dignity and every kind of respect. And wherever you go and whatever you do and however you make those choices, nothing takes any of that dignity or respect away from you. And as a physician, I should make the promise to care about you and care for you, regardless of how you choose to walk in the world, making those choices and those calls. These are hard times, and these are hard decisions people make. And the one thing they should never have to make choices about is whether the community will love them. And so we should need to say over and over again, wherever you are, whatever you do, this community loves you, and that's the most important thing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Danielson. That was absolutely amazing. And yeah, I feel like love is the key to unlock peace.
Say
like,
that.
love is the key to unlock peace. Absolutely. And life is love. Love is life. I do have one question that was asked, and this is for either you, Dr. Danielson, or Dr. Counts. And if you can't answer, it's totally fine. But what is it preventing the vaccines from being fully approved by the FDA? Do you all know?
We have that's come up a lot lately in some of the conversations I'm with, like this governor's task force on things like this. And I am a little curious why the FDA is not saying something more definitive about timeline, but I also understand that we've been spoiled by this amazing progress in getting these vaccines out there in the first place, and it may heighten the expectation that everything will just go fast forever. There is a process that they still want to hold to. There's knowledge that they are learning, even as the vaccination and the nature of the illness and the new variants and things like that are playing themselves out. And I don't want to get in the head of someone back in the FDA making those kinds of decisions, but I think that's a really important question to be asking, because I do feel like there would be at least some more people out there who would feel much better about getting a vaccine that's fully approved like that. On the face of it, though, I also still go back to what my mentor, Dr. Counts, said, that if you are caring most about being the most protected from this deadly virus that likes to kill Black people, there is a way to do that. And that will be true whether the FDA approves it fully or not.
Right.
And then I have another question. Is it true that having a healthy immune system with healthy levels of vitamin D, zinc, vitamin C, and E, etc., helps protect against COVID and reduce symptoms?
I was making sure I was not muted. I can comment on that. I think that having a healthy immune system, by however way one can achieve it, whether or not the various things that can be taken, I think that that's good health. That's good for your health, regardless. That's good for your immune health, your physical health, your mental health. But whether or not those specific things do anything specifically to prevent COVID, I don't know. And there's really no way of knowing. However, it just makes good sense to do anything you can that will help the immune system, just in general.
Yes, absolutely. I definitely agree. And I think that definitely goes with what Dr. Danielson was saying with the bigger picture. And it's more than just talking about vaccines. It's talking about our overall health, mental, physical, spiritual. You know, we all just want to be healthy so we can enjoy our lives and spread love. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Dr. Counts. Thank you, Dr. Danielson. Appreciate you all so much and all the work that you're doing. I'm a huge person of giving people flowers while they're alive. So I'm giving you all your flowers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I feel like you guys are not acknowledged enough, but I want to acknowledge you all right here on my platform. That's the least I can do. So again, just thank you. And we love you and appreciate you. And so this has been Courageous Conversations, COVID-19 Vaccine You Decide, episode 3. You can catch us next week, next Tuesday, 7 p.m. We're going to have our 4th Courageous Conversation, and that's going to be on how to talk to vaccine shy loved ones. And so, you know, we're all about good vibes and spreading love. So we're going to end it with some music. So Secret Sound Adventures, y'all can take it away and close out the night. Thank you, everyone. Love and light to you all. Peace. Secret Sound Adventures, everyone. Dropping their links. They stream every Thursday at 9:30. Sometimes I'm even kicking it with them, dropping some rhymes. Thank you guys, everybody. Sunny wanted to say hi. Say hi, Sunny. He wanted to hear the music. Love and light to each and every one of you. I want to leave everyone with this last piece. This is an excerpt from one of my poems called My Rediscovery. When we see things, we automatically jump to conclusions, but it's not what we see, it's what we feel. And love is the only way to know that it's real. Love and light. Peace out, y'all. Thank you, everyone.